Hello, geography students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have your maps for Chapter 6 talking about Canada. And in this session, we're going to highlight or at least label the maps of Canada's physical features. So we're going to start with kind of the landforms. That would be your mountains, uh, your plains, and such. And then we're going to look at rivers and lakes, and then finally the big bodies of water. So as you go through and are watching this, if you need to pause so that you can write things down, if I'm going too fast, be sure to do so. When you're finished, you will be turning this in. All right, let's begin. We're going to talk a little bit about the items kind of going from west to east as we kind of look at the maps, or if we're going from right or left to right, for those of you who are not sure what your directions are. But we're going to start with Mount Logan. And Mount Logan is kind of located in the far northwestern part of Canada. It's very close to the Alaskan border, but it is the tallest peak in Canada. And it is only just 1,000 feet or so short of um, basically what is Mount McKinley or Denali, if you remember that. Uh, Along the coast, we have what is sometimes referred to as the coastal mountains, or you might hear it referred to as the coastal range. Okay, this band of mountains that kind of goes from the Yukon all the way down through British Columbia. Beyond that, we have this long series of mountains that kind of starts in the Yukon Territory and goes all the way down into the United States. That would be the Rocky Mountains. North of that, we have a set of mountains known as the Mackenzie Mountains. And this is going to be easy to remember because at some point in time, we've got a river that kind of sounds a little bit like this. We also have the interior plains. That would pretty much go from what is Alberta through Saskatchewan and Manitoba. We also have the Canadian Shield. The Canadian Shield really encompasses a pretty good chunk of what is Quebec, Ontario, a little bit of Manitoba up into Nunavut, but probably at least half of Canada is probably covered by this Canadian Shield. And then our final set of mountains is the Laurentian Mountains, and that kind of is along what would be kind of the St. Lawrence River or Seaway. That kind of forms that boundary there between the United States, or at least I should say Quebec, and the kind of the northern part of Quebec from the southern part of Quebec. All right, moving on to rivers and lakes. And we're going to start again, kind of working our way from left to right here. We've got the Yukon River, which starts a little bit into British Columbia, travels through the Yukon and into parts of Alaska. We have the Mackenzie River. If you remember just a moment ago, we labeled a set of mountains that's kind of in the same vicinity. And then we also have the Great Bear Lake. Now, I realize if you're looking at your lake here, the shape might not look like a bear, but bear with us. All right. Below that, we have the Great Slave Lake, and then Lake Athabasca. Then we have this lake right here. This is Lake Winnipeg, not very far from the city of Winnipeg, Manitoba. Then we have this little lake here that kind of forms the boundary between the United States and parts of Manitoba and Ontario, and that is known as Lake of the Woods. If you've looked at maps, you might hear about International Falls, Minnesota, and that's kind of where this is at. In the lower 48 states, this is actually the furthest point north because a good chunk of this actually goes into what would probably be what some people would assume to be Canada, but it's not. All right, let's talk Great Lakes. We got our lake here. This is Lake Superior. And then we have Lake Huron down towards the bottom. We have Lake Erie. It kind of forms a boundary between like Ohio and parts of New York. This is between Lake Erie and our next lake. This is where you would find Niagara Falls. And so our last lake is actually Lake Ontario. And then finally, we have the St. Lawrence River that kind of goes from Lake Ontario out to towards the Atlantic. All right, moving on are our bodies of water. So we're going to start up at the top and kind of work our way again towards left to right here. We've got our Arctic Ocean, and then we've got the Beaufort Sea. And I'm going to go further down here with the Pacific Ocean. Then we've got this little area kind of right in here. I know our arrow might look like it's kind of pointing back towards the Beaufort Sea, but this is the Amundsen Gulf. Put that right there. We've got this bigger area. This is the Hudson Bay. And kind of the southernmost point of that is actually known as the James Bay. Working our way up at the top here, we've got Baffin Bay. That's in this vicinity here. And then right next to what would be the province of Newfoundland, Labrador, we have the Labrador part of it, Labrador Sea. Off the east coast of Newfoundland, we actually have an area known as the Grand Banks. This is a very important fishing area in the Atlantic. And then we have the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So if you remember where the St. Lawrence River was, this kind of empties, the river kind of empties out into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. And then eventually we'll enter the Atlantic Ocean. All right, thank you very much.